The night I saved my boss from a terrible date began with a moment so sharp it felt like fate grabbing my collar and refusing to let go. Rain streaked down the restaurant windows like the city itself was crying, and through the glass I saw her body language change in a way no one mistakes, shoulders tight, smile forced, eyes searching for an exit that didn't exist. She wasn't just uncomfortable. She was trapped. And in that instant, before I even knew what I was about to lose or gain, I stepped inside and unknowingly stepped into the most important turning point of my life. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet moments that can change everything, take a second right now to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the Kindness Chronicles. Your support keeps stories like this alive. I had always lived on the edges of rooms, the kind of person who learned early that survival sometimes meant staying invisible. At work, I was reliable but replaceable, the one who stayed late without being asked and left before anyone noticed. She was my boss, successful, admired, carrying herself with confidence that looked effortless from the outside. But I had seen the cracks in the quiet moments, when meetings ended, when the office emptied, when she thought no one was watching. There was a loneliness in her that mirrored my own, though neither of us had words for it then. That evening, I had only gone to the restaurant to pick up takeout after another long day of pretending I was fine. When I recognized her at the corner table, my first instinct was to turn around. Crossing professional lines had consequences, and I had spent my life avoiding risk. But something about the way her hands trembled as she reached for her glass, the way her laughter came half a second too late, made my feet refuse to move away. I didn't know the man sitting across from her, but I knew the look of someone being diminished in real time. I did the only thing my conscience would allow. I interrupted with an excuse thin enough to be polite but solid enough to give her an out. It wasn't heroic. It was awkward and clumsy and fueled by a heart pounding too loud in my chest. But when she stood up, relief flooding her face like air after nearly drowning, I understood that sometimes courage isn't loud, it's just timely. Outside, the rain soaked through my jacket, but I barely felt it. We stood under the awning, city noise humming around us, both pretending this was normal. She thanked me in a way that felt heavier than gratitude, like someone acknowledging a lifeline. I tried to brush it off, tried to return us to the safety of professional distance, but something had already shifted. A door had opened that neither of us could close again. The days that followed were different in subtle ways that only people paying close attention would notice. Meetings lingered longer. Emails carried warmth instead of efficiency. Silence between us felt charged instead of empty. Yet with every step forward, fear pulled me back twice as hard. I told myself stories about boundaries, about power dynamics, about the inevitability of disappointment. I had been burned before by hoping for more than life was willing to give. She, too, was fighting her own battles. Beneath her polished exterior was a woman tired of being strong all the time, tired of dates that felt like interviews and relationships that asked her to shrink. Success had given her everything except the one thing she wanted most, to be seen without performing. I could sense it in the way she watched people, measuring sincerity, bracing for letdown night refused to fade. It hovered between us, unspoken but alive. Then came the evening when work ran late again, the office nearly empty, lights dimmed to save power. We talked longer than necessary, about life instead of deadlines, about the quiet disappointments that don't make headlines, but shape who you become. She admitted, without admitting, that the date had shaken her more than she let on. I admitted, without confessing, that stepping in had been the bravest thing I'd done in years. What I didn't expect was the vulnerability that followed. She wondered aloud whether kindness like that could exist without expectation. Whether someone could show up simply because it was the right thing to do. In that moment, the distance between boss and employee dissolved into something human and fragile. And then she asked, not with confidence but with hope trembling underneath, whether I had ever considered what it might be like if circumstances were different, if titles didn't exist, if fear didn't get the final say. The question scared me more than rejection ever could. Because wanting her meant risking everything I had carefully protected. It meant believing I deserved happiness, not just survival. I struggled with it in silence, replaying every possible outcome, every way it could go wrong. Old wounds resurfaced, whispering that people like me were meant to help others find joy, not claim it for themselves. Change came slowly, like dawn rather than lightning. We didn't rush. We learned each other in fragments, shared coffee breaks, late-night texts that felt too personal and yet completely natural, moments of laughter that dissolved weeks of tension. Trust grew where fear had lived, watered by honesty and patience. And somewhere along the way, I realized that saving her from that terrible date hadn't been about rescue at all. It had been about recognition, two people seeing each other clearly for the first time. When we finally crossed the line we had tiptoed around for so long, it didn't feel reckless. It felt inevitable. Not a dramatic leap, but a quiet step forward, grounded in mutual respect. We faced challenges together, whispers at work, doubts from friends, our own lingering insecurities. Some days were harder than others, but each obstacle reinforced what we were building rather than tearing it down. Love, I learned, isn't always fireworks. Sometimes it's the steady warmth of knowing someone has your back when the world feels sharp. It's choosing kindness again and again, even when it's inconvenient. It's believing that a single brave moment can ripple outward and rewrite an entire future. As I look back now, I see how close I came to walking away that rainy night, to letting fear decide for me. If I had, my life would still be smaller, quieter, safer, and infinitely lonelier. Instead, I chose to act, not knowing it would lead me here, to a place where hope feels justified and love feels earned. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that small acts of courage can change lives, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this video. Subscribe to the Kindness Chronicles so more stories like this can reach those who need them. And before you go, leave a comment telling us about a moment when kindness changed your life. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to read today.